Welcome to this week's Weaving Shamanic Connections live Zoom call. We will be going over dreaming and the shamanic perspective of dreaming. So I'm looking forward to digging into deep topics about lucid dreaming. That's going to be the majority of what we go over today. We're going to talk a little bit about dream interpretation and the shamanic path to finding the interpretation of dreams. And then we're going to do a journey at the end to a dream, either a dream that you've had recently. And if you can't remember one of those, we all have those repeating dreams, or at least a repeating theme in a dream when we're always in school and we can't quite find our classroom, or we can't remember a lock combination, something like that. So we'll journey to either a specific dream or a dream theme that's repeating in our lives to get some information and answers. So I'm looking forward to digging into this very juicy topic. Thank you for joining. And as always, we'll start by calling in our spirit circle. So go ahead and just settle in, close your eyes, relax. Take a nice deep breath. Try and allow that exhale to be twice as long as the inhale. Signaling your nervous system that it's time to relax. Be present in the moment. And as you close your eyes, imagine a big field outside in nature. The center is a beautiful, safe bonfire. And take a moment to just mentally connect in with the element of fire. Feeling that warm, transmuting energy and intelligence of fire. Good. And imagine that around the fire in a magical way is a flow of water, however you imagine that. And connect in with your mind to the element of water, ever-changing flow, that life-giving element of water. Good. And take a nice deep breath in and imagine that there's a breeze flowing around you. And you take that clean air into your lungs, filling your lungs with the rejuvenating, refreshing quality of air as you connect in with that element. Good. And imagine sinking your awareness down into the earth below you. Even imagining that you can connect your heartbeat to the heartbeat of Mother Earth, syncing with her rhythm, feeling that nurturing, balanced, grounding energy of Mother Earth. Good. Perfect. And now imagine that around you, in a circle around the fire, is everyone listening to this call, to this recording, live or in the future. We're all there together. In non-ordinary reality, there's no such thing as time. So we're all able to be in that circle together. And mentally just send out a welcome to everyone in that circle. Saying thank you for coming. Thank you for being you, and bringing your exact energy into this circle today. And imagine feeling that energy returning to you, that thanks, that appreciation. Everyone in the circle, past, present, and future, we're all there together. And everyone is sending you their gratitude and appreciation for you showing up exactly as you are. And say yes to receiving, to allowing that energy, that thanks, that gratitude to touch your heart. Good. That's right. And now let's call in our spirit helpers. Welcome in all of your guides, angels, ancestors, power animals, all those that you work with in the spirit realm that can be known or even unknown to you. Setting an intention, welcoming them in. And we ask Spirit to help us form a loving and supportive community. We ask for guidance and support in building connection with one another and opening a clear connection to our spirit helpers. And we ask this for our own highest good and the highest good of all concerned, that we may be guided to live our best lives. And offer gratitude now to all those spirit helpers, known or unknown, thanking them, trusting them that they've shown up for you now and always, whenever you call, whenever you set that intention. And now offer love and gratitude for yourself, appreciating your own willingness to learn and to grow, to explore new spiritual concepts and practices. Knowing that as you rise, we all rise together. So thank you for coming and being so willing. Knowing that you can always come to this circle, that each time we visit, we all leave a little bit of our essence, a little bit of that love and gratitude and blessings that we have brought to the circle remains there, so that it heals, it grows in energy, it becomes a power place that you can visit in non-ordinary reality. A place that you can journey to hang out and to connect. Thank you. And go ahead when you're ready, bring all of that light and love back into ordinary reality. And open your eyes and join us. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So dreaming is a really important idea, theme, concept in shamanic cultures all over the world. And it has been whenever anthropologists have gone into ancient cultures to cultures that are still practicing their indigenous ways, there's always an importance on dreaming. And the things that these shamanic cultures have in common in their view of dreaming is that dreaming is the essence of this world. It is, you can call it God, you can call it universal energy, source energy. It's the life force, the stuff that animates us. And you might almost think of it as the matrix. It's that energy that holds our world together and holds each of us in it. And along with that, the potential of creation and of us each creating both our consensual reality as well as our individual realities. And so that flows both through our waking lives, but then when we are asleep, that door through dreaming the way that we think of when we think of dreams, that nighttime dreaming, is a doorway to really connect with that essence in a way that is almost more pure, more true, more creative. So when we are in our waking lives, we are a little bit restricted, a little bit stuck in our five five senses and our reality that our five senses and our perception creates for us. So we see what's around us, the physical items in our world, and we believe that they're there, and we believe that they're solid, and we all agree to that belief. And so that creates that dense reality that we all live in. And in some ways, that's inescapable in our waking lives. And it's also necessary in our waking lives. If we were able to just create things and change things in waking life like we can in reality, you could just make your house disappear, or someone else could make your house disappear. And, the things that are physical around you would cease to have their ability. You couldn't set things on a table without knowing that they wouldn't pass right through that table. So in our everyday waking life, we need to have some sort of rules, universal laws of physics that order our lives. Although we still live in that potential, that energetic potentiality where we can create in our waking lives. But in our dream world, we can really play with those concepts, because in a dream, it's okay if you set something on a table and it passes right through. And we've all had that experience where we just know things in dreams. We just accept them. Even though you can't see what's on the other side of the door, you have a feeling that it's scary. You know that it's scary. You know that it's something bad on the other side of that door, or something amazing. So we can create things in the dream world in a way that's almost more real, where we're using that sense of potentiality to create right there in that moment in that dream, where we aren't able to see those same kind of results in waking life. So that's one of the reasons, although waking life and dream life, they flow back and forth. There's not, in shamanic cultures, there's not such a divide between waking and dreaming. They speak to each other. Our dreams are our language in sleep, and our synchronicities and things like that are the language of that potentiality, that field of potentiality in our waking lives. And there's always a back and forth. And the more that you can notice that, the more you can really utilize those dreams. So that's just a little bit about the concept of dreaming and why that's so important in in shamanic cultures around the world. They really kind of see that dream time as more real. It's more creative. And so when we go into sleep, we access those symbols those metaphors that we've come to know in our current culture and our modern culture, where we look up symbols in a dream dictionary, which we'll talk about later. But that's kind of, you can also have those same symbols showing up in your real life, in your waking life. So there's a language, a communication back and forth there. And I just want to talk a little bit about what you can do with dreaming, and why it's such an important ability to develop. So we know that there's obviously a language of the subconscious. We do have an understanding, like I said, in modern culture, of our subconscious talking to us in our symbols and metaphors in our dreams. And so obviously we all kind of know that that's a way of understanding ourselves better, understanding our fears, understanding those patterns that we're stuck in, understanding those parts where subconscious is trying to get us unstuck from different things, or even playing out past traumas, trying to move past those things. But when it comes to shamanic dreaming, there's so much deeper that we can go. So a few things you can use dreams for. And this is definitely not an exhaustive list, but healing is one of them. A short story on that: I've talked a lot about Sandra Ingerman and how she's a really amazing shamanic teacher that's active and alive in the US today. She has a story about a healing dream where she kept setting an intention to heal a physical ailment that she had. And she just kept at it. She just, every night before she fell asleep, she set the intention to have a healing dream for this specific ailment. And she did that night after night after night. And it did take a while, but she had a dream that she was sitting in her living room, the way it exists in waking life. And between the wall and the couch, which you know how much space sits between a couch that's pushed up against a wall, it's very small. And yet a Native American man emerged from that little crack and came around and offered her a healing, which did amount to a healing in her physical world. So healing is a big one. Physical, actual, real life healings are something that we can ask for and receive through dreaming. We can gain access to insight and guidance. So in the same way that we go into a shamanic journey with the intention to ask for guidance or get an answer to a specific situation that's going on in our lives, we can also set those same intentions to have dreams that help us in those same ways. They can be simulations for things, so we can go into a dream. And there's some folks that you'll hear about in the physics world, in science, who have used dreams as a simulation where they're struggling with this problem. They just can't get past what's the next step, how to make this engineering marvel work or this invention created. They have a stumbling block they can't get over. And so they set an intention and they have a dream that's a lucid dream where they're able to be in the lab, in whatever environment that they work in, and they work through it, and they can bring in creative elements that aren't necessarily accessible to their waking mind. So it can be a simulation for all different things, not just inventions and things like that, but also creative practices. There have been writers who have gone into a novel. They're writing a novel and there's a scene where they're just stuck and they can't figure out how that scene's going to play out or how it connects or what this character would do. You can create a simulation of that novel, bring in those characters and ask them, what's your next step? What would you do? How would you react to this situation? And that can be true of any creative pursuit. If you're painting and you can't find the next step, it just doesn't quite look right. You can go into the painting in a dream. So those are some really amazing creative outlets that you can do. You can also role play with people in your life. So you have a boss or a coworker or a family member or a friend where you're butting heads and you can't quite find a solution. You can't get past this certain thing. You can see that person in the dream and play out the kind of role play that situation, have that practice conversation of, what's up, man? What's going on? Why are you doing this? And how can we make this better? So you can have conversations with difficult people. You can play out and practice difficult situations. So if you have a speech that you're going to give or some kind of public speaking that you're afraid of, you can play that out in a dream first and have it go amazingly well and just feel the feelings of how well it went and remember what you said and the feelings of it. And then you can bring that into your waking life. You can also you can practice things like a difficult conversation with your boss. If you've been really wanting to ask for that promotion or a raise or something else, some kind of change in your hours, you'd like to shift your schedule around, but you're just afraid to ask. You just feel like, oh, I'm sure that person's going to say no. You can practice those kinds of things in your dreams just to gain the confidence. And then also using the dream world to manifest that in the way that you want it to go a little bit. Manifestation, that's another one. When you continue to see things in the dream world and practice it being real in the dream world, that absolutely, like I said, it flows over. There's no divide in the shamanic point of view between the dreaming and the waking dream and the nighttime dream. So if you're manifesting that in your nighttime dreams, you will eventually see it in your everyday life. You can ask for guidance again in the same way with anything with a journey. You can ask about your life purpose. You can ask about past lives. You can work through karmic lessons, find out why patterns keep showing up in your life and how to avoid them, how to learn what you need to learn in order to move past those things. You can change beliefs, all of those places where, maybe I want to manifest more money in my life, but I know that I have a kind of a stuck belief from my childhood that people that are rich are bad, or people that have money are evil, or money is evil. Those kinds of beliefs that hold us back. We can go into dreams and personify that belief and work through it, change it, give it a different job. We can understand nightmares. So anytime that you are having, especially repeating nightmares, you can find out what's going on with those dreams. One of my favorite teachers and authors on Shamanic Dreaming, Robert Wagner, which I'll give you information on where to access his books. he talks about a nightmare that he had where he became lucid in the dream and turned and faced this horrifying dream figure and asked, what are you doing? What are you trying to tell me? What's your point? And the person, it had been like I believe it was like a really scary older woman, almost like a hag that you would imagine from fairy tales. And she just immediately turned into a much more mild mannered, calm, now that I know you're listening, I don't have to be scary anymore kind of person. And she told him, you have a book. You're supposed to write a book, and you haven't been doing it. He'd had it on the forefront of the mind, and it had moved to the back burner, and it was slowly sliding off the end of the back burner and almost moving into non-existence. And so he had some part of him that was supposed to write that book, and that became a book that I'll talk about later on lucid dreaming, which is a really amazing guide, which again, at the end, I'll give you all of the resources for that information. So that's another example where you can get really good, wonderful information from nightmares, and they stop being scary once you start to understand what they want, what they're trying to tell you. Anything that you do in a journey, you can do in a dream. So you can visit dream temples, you can visit ancestral councils, you can see scenes in your past and be an advocate for yourself. So if you had a difficult childhood event, you can go back and be an adult with that little child, helping them through that scene, even changing that scene so that it's not scary, it's not difficult for them. One cool example on how dreams flow into real life, I have a friend who had an actual car accident in real waking life. He was in actually, it wasn't a car accident. It was, he was driving, and there's a truck, semi, that it was right there in his path. And he closed his eyes right before impact. Like literally his car was going to hit head on for him and sideways into this truck. And it was too sudden. It was, he hit his brakes, but there was no stopping. It was going to be a relatively high speed impact. When he opened his eyes, braced for impact, and then nothing happened. He opens his eyes, he's on the other side of the truck. And I kid you not, I know that sounds crazy. I 100% promise you that this came from someone who I know and I absolutely believe. And he was, shocked and couldn't understand what happened. And later, so make a long story short, later he had a dream. Years later in his life, like years later in his life, he had a really powerful dream where he was above that accident, looking at that accident. So he's above, seeing the truck, seeing himself in the car. And he became this white light energy that moved his car onto the other side of the truck without a collision. And so in the dream, he time traveled and changed that situation. So crazy, amazing, cool things can happen in dreams. I don't even know how to explain that one, but that's what I'm talking about with a field of potentiality and how powerful and miraculous dreams can be. We can visit different times and places throughout history. We can visit other realities. We can visit the future. Very cool things. Is anything that you can imagine, you can do in a journey, and you can also do through your dreams once you can become lucid in your dreams and be able to set intention and control them that way, which we'll get into the how-to on that a little bit down the road. I want to talk just for a moment about dream interpretation, the way that we see it in the way that it's commonly viewed in our current modern culture. I know there are a lot of dream interpretation books and dream dictionaries and things like that. And just like in the same way I've mentioned in past calls that it's best not to find a power animal and then immediately go look up the meaning that someone wrote in a book of that power animal, because that animal has something, it means something different, has different messages, a different purpose in your life than that author of that book could conceive of. And so those types of books are based on, same thing with dream dictionaries, they're based on more of a collective unconscious, kind of that Jungian idea of what these types of symbols tend to mean in dreams. There's nothing wrong with using them if you really, really want to, go for it. But I always advise that you first find your own interpretation on this. So there's a common example of this is snakes. Some people love snakes, think they're the coolest thing ever, maybe had snakes as a child, as a pet. Other people think that snakes are terrifying and horrible. There are cultures that revere snakes, and the shedding of the skin is kind of a cycle of life. That's a really big cultural theme in many various different cultures. And then in the Western culture, snake tends to be more based on the Adam and Eve mythology and the snake being evil. And so you can see where different cultures that come from different mythologies, different belief systems have very different ideas of snake. And then beyond our cultural views, there's our personal views of what a snake is and means, and how we feel about it. So if you have a dream about a snake showing up in your house, you know, what that snake means to you is gonna be very personal. And if you go and look it up in a dream dictionary, it might say, you know, represent evil, or they represent the cycle of life. But that might not have anything to do with what the snake image is meaning, that metaphor, that symbol means for you at that time of that dream. So take the, you know, if you want to look up those, you know, use those books and look things up, do it. But I always advise that you explore your own interpretation first, and then just use that other information as auxiliary information, kind of just bonus information that may or may not be relevant to your dream. So having said that, how do you interpret your own dream? And we'll get into some of this more later, but journeying. So we've all learned how to journey. We've all known we're familiar with our guides, and you can always journey to the dream. And we'll talk about dream reentry later, and we'll journey to a dream at the end of this. So you'll even get to practice, but always just journey. That's the best way. Set an intention to understand this specific dream. Go into a journey, call in your power animal or your helping spirit, and journey to the dream, and just walk through the dream. And as you're walking through it, look around you. Oh yeah, that's right, there was a snake. What does snake mean? Oh yeah, that's right, there was this. But aside from that, if you don't want to journey, a good way to interpret dreams is to play a little game that is explaining it to an alien. So pretend that you're explaining the dream to someone who's very new to this planet. And you have to explain not only the dream and what happened, but what each thing means. So if you had a dream about being in a room full of cats, and one of the cats was kind of following you around and being mean and attacking or something, you're telling the alien, like, I was in a room. Okay, what's a room? A room is a structure. You want to, and if you know the structure, talk about it. The places where you are often important in dreams. So I was in my home, or I was in my childhood bedroom, or I was in my good friend's room. I was in a shopping mall, whatever. Then you have to explain that. I was in a shopping mall and there were cats everywhere. What's a shopping mall? Shopping mall is a big structure with a lot of different stores and a lot of different people. It's a public area where people come and go. You know, what is a cat? A cat is an animal. It can be a pet. It can be, so you're describing all of these things. And as you're describing them to that alien that doesn't know what a cat is, doesn't know what a mall is, doesn't know what mean is, a mean cat that's following you around and biting. What does biting mean? It means taking your mouth and your teeth and grabbing. It hurts. It's painful. You know, it's scary. Those kinds of things are going to start to tap into the meaning just through describing it that way, because you're going to be not only looking at, oh, it's a cat, and what does cat mean, but what did it feel like to have that cat biting you? What did it feel? What is a bite like? And as you're describing those on a really fundamental, very basic level, you'll be surprised how much information of that comes through. So just describing that to an alien, and then thinking about what those things mean in your life. What is grabbing onto and holding you in a painful way? That's what the cat's doing when they're biting. Okay, is there anywhere in my life that something's grabbing onto me and holding onto me in a painful way? So when we can get at sort of that elemental description, a very basic description, then we can transfer that and ask the question, where is this happening in my waking life? So as far as just more of a subconscious tool, a tool of delving into your subconscious and finding the mental meanings behind our dreams, that's a good way to start. Also, always follow your emotions. How did you feel in the dream? Was the dream creepy? Was it happy? Was it scary? That's always going to be a big indicator of, again, what's creepy in your own life, what's scary, what things are you facing, not facing. those kinds of things. So I'm not going to get too much more into that. As always, if you want more information, feel free to reach out through Weaving Shamanic Connections, and we can converse about it more. But for this purpose of this training, we're mostly going to be talking about the shamanic version. So again, the best way to find out the interpretation of a dream from a shamanic point of view is to journey to that dream with the intention, going through the dream with your spirit guide or power animal, and asking questions as you move through all of the things that happened in the dream. All right, so now we're going to get into lucid dreaming and spend a bit of time there, because lucid dreaming is really at the meat of the dream potential and what we can do in our in connecting our waking and sleeping lives. So what is a lucid dream? That is a dream where you become aware that you're dreaming. So it's almost like waking up in the dream. You're not really waking up. Your body is still laying there sleeping physically the way that you would while you're asleep, while you're dreaming. But inside the dream, you become aware that I'm dreaming, and I know that I'm dreaming. And most people have some element of this. They've experienced it in some way. Sometimes we have a nightmare that's so scary, we wake ourselves up. And that's just a little teeny bit of a lucid moment. You realized that, I'm really freaked out. This is really scary. It's a horrible feeling. But because I know that I'm dreaming, because I know it's not actually happening, I can wake myself up as a way to escape, a way to get out of it. So that's one little version. Sometimes a lot of people have had flying dreams, and in flying dreams, people often have just a moment of, wow, I'm flying, which usually in dreams, you're not surprised about what's happening. Usually you're just kind of going with the flow and everything makes sense in the dream. But that moment of just, wow, I'm flying, and I usually am not able to fly, that's just a little hint of lucidity. And there's different levels of lucidity. So I think a lot of times starting out, I made the mistake of thinking it's either or. Either you're dreaming and you're unaware, or you're dreaming and you're lucid and you are aware that you're dreaming. There are definitely different stages of that. I found through practice that you can be somewhat aware, like that kind of, yeah, I'm flying. That's weird. It feels really good. And you're kind of exploring the idea of flying, but you're not so lucid that you also realize you're dreaming. You're kind of, it's really hard to describe. You're dreaming, and you know that you're flying, and you know that that's not typically something that you're capable of, and it feels good, and you're just exploring that. But at the same time, you're not really controlling or aware of the things around you. So let's say that you're flying around in your house. You're not looking around and saying, oh, here's this other person who lives with me, and I see that person, and maybe I can talk to that person. You're not able to control the dream or change any elements or aspects of the dream, and you're not really questioning any elements or aspects of the dream. So that's kind of the way that we can have layering of lucid dreaming. Another way is we can have dreams where we know that we're dreaming. A friend of mine calls this the Russian doll effect. And this is a really common experience when you first start lucid dreaming, when you first start consciously trying to lucid dream, which I'll get into the how-to on that definitely, so don't worry. But there's this repeating waking up action where, okay, so I'm dreaming, and suddenly I become aware that no, sorry, let me back up. Okay, so this is what the Russian doll, the Russian dolls where there's one inside another. This is kind of the way it goes, is you think that you've woken up. So you knew that you were asleep. You think that you've woken up. You're dreaming of getting out of bed. You're doing the things that you would do when you got out of bed. So maybe you go to the bathroom, and maybe you brush your teeth, and maybe you put on slippers, and you're going through the motions of your day. But at some point you realize, oh, I'm not really doing this. I'm dreaming. And then often that thought brings you back into the dream, back into sleeping dream, and then you wake up again. So this whole entire thing is happening while you're actually asleep. But again, you think that you've woken up. You think that the idea of, oh, I'm dreaming, woke you up. So now you're getting out of bed again. You're going to the bathroom again. You're brushing your teeth again. You're putting on your slippers again. all of those steps over. And then again, at some point you go, wait a minute, I'm still not really doing this. I'm dreaming this. And then that thought brings you back to the beginning, and you wake up and you get out of bed and you do all of those things again. And none of those things have happened yet in reality. In reality, your body's still laying there in your bed asleep. And I don't know how other people experience this. For me, it was terrifying because I think I went through it about 4 or 5 times the first time it happened. And I felt like really trapped. I felt I'm in the matrix, I can't get out. Like I'm stuck in this dream. And every time I think that I'm awake, I'm actually not awake. And so it was very confusing and it was very scary. That was my experience. It may not be that way for other people. Other people might think it's hilarious, but eventually I did wake myself up, and it actually put me off of trying to consciously lucid dream for a little bit. I did get back to it. So I encourage you to keep trying if you have this experience. But it's actually a good sign. It's a sign that whatever you're doing to take steps to try and have lucid dreams is working. And like I said, there are versions of it. To just be patient with yourself, keep trying. It's definitely a practice. Like everything, you get better the more that you do it. So just a little bit of some ways that you can lucid dream without actually being fully awake. It's not a line where you're either fully non-aware or fully aware. There's kind of some practices to doing that, and levels, I should say, levels to being awake or being the kind of awareness that you have inside a lucid dream. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some ways to become lucid in dreams. And there are many practices. I'm going to give you a bunch, and you can practice some of them, practice a few, practice, you don't have to do them all. This isn't something that you have to do all of these things, but find a few that work for you or speak to you and give it a shot, and do it, like I said, repeatedly. You want to do it for a period of time. It takes a while for your sleeping mind to realize what you're trying to do, and to connect that what you're doing while you're awake is trying to make you awake while you're asleep. So be patient with yourself, keep going, keep practicing. The way that I started, and one of my favorite ways, is to just keep saying this is a dream throughout the day. So while you are actual awake, throughout the day, whenever it occurs to you, just, you can set a little timer to do this, or you can, wear a bracelet or a piece of jewelry that whenever you see it or notice it, it reminds you to do it. Tie a little string around your finger, whatever works. But throughout the day, just keep saying, this is a dream. This is a dream. And there's a few ways you can do that. Some people make it as a question. Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? Which we'll get into in a moment. But the way I started was just, this is a dream. 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 And eventually you're saying it so much that your subconscious mind picks things up and takes them into the dream world. Just like things that we repeatedly see can show up in our dreams. The same thing, when we repeatedly think something, you start to say it. Eventually your subconscious mind is going to start saying that in your dream. And when you say it in your dream, this is a dream, you go, wait, oh, this is a dream. And it kind of wakes you up. It clicks you into that level of lucidity. So that's the way I first got started. Some other things that you can do, again, is to wear something, and that you wear only when you're awake. Don't wear it to bed. But you can designate a certain piece of jewelry that when you see it, you look at it and you say, am I awake or am I dreaming? And then you look at that. So let's say it's a bracelet. You say throughout the day, am I awake or am I dreaming? Am I awake or am I dreaming? And you look down at your wrist and you see the bracelet and you go, I'm awake. That's how I know that I'm awake, is because I'm wearing this bracelet. When I dream, I'm not wearing the bracelet. So that's a way of just, again, it's called testing, whether you're awake or whether you're dreaming. It's kind of practicing that, checking in to see if I'm awake or am I dreaming? Am I awake or am I dreaming? And there's several things that you can do to test that reality, whether you're awake or dreaming. You can pinch your nose and close your mouth and see if you can breathe. So am I awake or am I dreaming? Can't breathe when I do that. So I'm clearly awake. Another test that you can do is people sometimes will try and push their fingers through their hand. Am I awake or am I dreaming? Nope, can't put my fingers through my palm. So obviously I'm awake. So these are things that we can do in dreams. You can plug your nose and hold your mouth closed and still be breathing in a dream. We can't do that when we're awake. We can't push our fingers through our hands. So again, you're just repeating that throughout the day. Am I awake or am I dreaming? And then finding your little test. Oh, I'm awake because I'm wearing this bracelet. Or, oh, I'm awake because I can't breathe. Or I can't do this, and have my fingers go all the way, pass all the way through my palm. So it's testing, am I awake or am I dreaming? If you keep doing that repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly throughout the day, as much as it occurs to you to do, when again, your subconscious mind is going to pick up that pattern. And at some point, you're going to do that test and you are going to be dreaming, and your fingers are going to go right through your palm, or you're going to look down and, oh, I'm not wearing that bracelet. I must be asleep. So, and then that's what sparks that wakefulness, sparks that lucidity, because you're in the dream, you've tested, and you realize that the test turned out to be dreaming, didn't turn out to be awake. And then all of a sudden now you're aware that you're dreaming. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, any questions on any of these things, you can reach out, but you need to really repeat these things over and over and over, almost like affirmations. You can't just say it one time and it works. You have to repeat them again and again in order for your subconscious mind to really take that kernel, that seed, and really just be hearing it so much that it's like, okay. And it takes it right into the dream world. It's heard it so much all day, day after day, that now it's saying, am I awake or am I dreaming in the dream world? So that is a few. And then there's others. So you can do the reverse of that. So instead of testing whether you're awake or dreaming, by doing something that you can do or you cannot do in your waking life, you can find some symbol in your dream. So, and check that throughout the day. So I know that sounds confusing. What I mean is, find a symbol in your dream. So let's say flying. Flying is something that we cannot do in our everyday reality. And so if you go through your day saying, am I flying? Am I flying? Am I flying? Nope, I'm not flying. So I must be awake. I must not be dreaming. And you can check that again. Then when you are flying, when you have that flying dream, it cues you into this as a dream. So in other words, we can do the dream check, the reality check, the awake or asleep check by things that we can't do in our waking life. We can also find those symbols in dreams. So if you want to find something that happens a lot. So you don't want to pick flying if you've only had one flying dream in your whole life, or you don't remember ever having a flying dream. Pick something that you have had a dream recently where something happened that could not happen in reality. So I don't know, an alligator was in your living room or something. Unless I guess if you live in Florida, that might be a possibility. But, look for those symbols that have happened in a recent dream, something that would not or could not happen in reality. And then throughout your day, check that thing, especially things that happen with frequency. I used to dream all the time. For some reason, my dreams were always in shopping malls. I don't know why. I don't have those anymore, but for some reason that was the setting. Even though I would be really at school or I would be really at work, the work looked like a mall, or my school looked like a mall. So in reality, I never went to malls. I just didn't go to them. So I would say throughout the day, am I in a mall? Am I in a mall? Am I in a mall? Does this building look like a mall? And the answer was no. And so then when I would see that mall-like place in a dream, I would realize I was dreaming. That would be one of the things that would cue me into dreaming. So hopefully that makes sense. Looking for those symbols that exist in your current dreams and checking if they exist in your regular life, and just checking throughout the day. And the answer is always no, because that thing in the dream doesn't happen in real life. But as soon as you have that dream again, where you are experiencing that dream symbol, then that'll cue you into lucidity. Another way, and this is one that depends on your sleep. So if you're someone who already has trouble sleeping through the night and getting a good amount of sleep, this is not the practice for you. But you can wake yourself up, set an alarm for about 5 hours after you go to bed, usually 2 to 3 hours before you get up. So wherever that sweet spot falls for you, set an alarm to wake you up. And for 30 minutes, you want to do something that requires alertness. You don't want to hear your alarm go off and just continue to lay in bed. You want to turn the lights on. You want to read or write. Don't use screens. Screens disrupt sleep. So don't get on your computer or a tablet or a phone, but Read a book is one of the best things. It requires some alertness, but it's not going to be disturbing for you. For most people, if they read for a while, they can fall back asleep. It's not an activity that you don't want to get up and do aerobics. You want to do something that's going to keep your body calm. So reading or writing, journal something, read, and then do that for 30 minutes. Before you go to sleep, set your intention to remember a dream, to set your intention to have a lucid dream. So just saying, tonight in my dreams, I will become aware. Tonight in my dreams, I will become aware. And then fall back asleep. There's something about that sweet spot of that period of time in your dreaming cycle, about 5 hours in and about 2 to 3 hours before you wake, where if you wake up for about 30 minutes and go back to sleep, it increases your odds of having a lucid dream. So there's lots of studies that have been done, and that's just sort of one of those things that helps. I tend to do this one if I'm already having trouble sleeping, where I've woken up, I've been trying to fall back asleep and I can't. That's a time to just get up and read for 30 minutes and go back to sleep. And I also will do it on the weekend sometimes, but I don't advise it before you're going to go to work, before you're going to go to school. If you have to get up early and be well rested, that it is a little bit of an interruption in your sleep cycle. And again, like I said, if you're someone who already has trouble having a solid sleep cycle, then don't try this practice. It's just going to disrupt your sleep cycle even more. I forgot to say in the beginning, one of the things you always want to do is set the intention, like we've talked about before. Focus and intention is so important in anything that you want to do. So no matter which one of these practices you do to try and create lucid dreaming, whenever you go to sleep, as you're falling asleep, set the intention to your subconscious mind to become lucid in my dreams. So tonight, when I fall asleep, I will become lucid in my dreams. Set that intention no matter which one of these practices you do. Let's see. And then there's a few things that you can do to go back into a dream. So in the morning, this will be most easy to do in the morning, or if you've been napping, or if you've woken up through the night. So if you've just woken up and you have a dream, you've just had a dream and you remember the dream, and you don't have to actually get up yet, go back consciously into the dream. So it's called dream reentry. And you go back into the dream just as it was. You just see yourself back in that place, back in that school that looks like a shopping mall, trying to remember your locker combination, whatever it was, back into that place, to your friend's house with all the cats and the cat was biting you. Go back consciously and recreate that dream, the feeling of the dream. Try and notice the things around you. Again, where were you? Were you in your friend's house? Were you in your friend's living room? Picture what that living room looks like, where the furniture is, where you were standing in regard to the furniture. The feel of the dream, any emotional feeling, and anything in the ambiance, anything in the environment that you can remember. Just bring that back to mind and try to stay. I know this is hard. This one to me is hard. Other people might have a better experience, but try to stay lucid. Try to stay aware while you fall back to sleep into that dream. My experience of that one is I can do it for a really short period of time. But as I actually fall asleep and it picks up from being just me and my imagination of being in the dream, and it slowly goes back into the dream, I slowly lose awareness, usually. Again, don't let that dissuade you, though. It's a good practice. And the more you do any of these, the better you're going to get at it. So pick one that you like and keep doing that, and you will get stronger at it. You will get better at it. But going back into one of those dreams is a good way. When you napping is also a time that is easier to have lucid dreams. In fact, that's when my first, those Russian doll dreams that freaked me out so much, was when I was napping. When we nap, we tend not to go quite as deep as we do when we're sleeping at night. There's part of you that knows that, hey, I'm laying on the couch in the middle of the day. I'm not actually trying to fully go to sleep for 8 hours. And so we're a little bit more shallow in our dreams. We're a little bit closer to waking life. And so it's a little bit easier to bring that reality in. Our dream cycles can be shorter as well at that time. So as you kind of come back up to the surface a little bit and go back in shorter bursts, then you can sometimes become lucid more easily. A couple of things that can help. There are a couple of things that you can take to help lucid dreams. I want to just say, obviously, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving you any medical advice, and you should always check in with your doctor before taking anything. Some things that you can take that are known to help lucid dreaming. There's a supplement, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what the supplement's made out of. Do your own research on this. I know that it's over the counter. It's called galantamine, and this is one that I use. I know that it's used for people that have dementia that are starting to lose memory, and those early stages, it does help boost memory. So when I first started taking it, and again, it's galantamine, it's GALANTAMINE, galantamine, which I bought on Amazon. Not advising anyone to do it what's right for you and check with your doctor, but I bought it on Amazon. I take it during that period of time. Like I said, those times where you get up for that 30-minute period. You want to take it towards the beginning of the morning, closer to the morning, not if you take it before you go to sleep. It just doesn't have the same impact. So the best way if you take galantamine is to practice it during that, if you're going to do that 30-minute wake up. So again, on a day that you don't have work the next day, you can sleep in and make up for sleep if you're feeling tired and deprived of sleep. Set that alarm for 5 hours into your sleep cycle, 2 to 3 hours before you wake up, and get up. And I get up and I take the galantamine, and then I sit in bed and I read for 30 minutes. And then as I turn off the light and I'm falling back asleep, I set the intention. Tonight I will lucid dream. When I fall asleep, I will remember my dream. It will be a lucid dream. That's what I say. I also want to throw in the dream recall in there, which we'll get into in a little bit. You can have lucid dreams and not be remembering them, and those aren't quite as helpful. So tonight, my intention is always tonight in my dreams, when I fall asleep, I will remember my dreams and I will become lucid, or some version of that. And then I fall back asleep. And no matter what, for me, the galantamine does help my dream recall. So even on the nights that I don't have any type of lucidity, or I don't feel like I've had deep lucidity, I definitely do remember my dreams better, which is a one perk. But this is my system that works for me. Again, I do the repeating during the day when I'm really ramping up to really working on lucid dreams. I kind of ebb and flow. Sometimes I do this work continually, and sometimes it falls off my priority list. So when I'm doing it conscientiously, really working to have lucid dreams, then I repeat, is this a dream? Is this a dream? Is this a dream? Is this a dream? And I do some kind of check, or sometimes I'll just say, anyway, we'll leave it with that. And then I will do the galantamine and the wake up for 30 minutes, again, on days where I know that I don't have to be up early and I don't have to worry about feeling tired. That's my system. All of these are proven to work for different people. So again, try them out, see what works for you. Another one that I have not tried, but that is known, it's an herb that is used for inducing lucid dreams, is mugwort. Again, check with your doctor. This is not medical advice. I haven't taken mugwort. I've heard things about where some people have experiences with sleep paralysis, and that is that state where you become awake, literally awake, like actual awake, but your body hasn't quite woken up yet. And so people will have, sometimes people who take mugwort experience that. I've also heard different things about actually both galantamine and mugwort interrupting people's sleep, where it almost feels like getting up and having a cup of coffee, where they just can't quite fall back asleep. So I haven't tried mugwort personally, but I know that is something that has really helped a lot of people. So those are two supplements that you can research, check with your doctor, and see if that feels right for you. Some early pitfalls, and I've talked about this a little bit already. The lucid dreaming, the Russian dolls, where you're having a dream that you woke up and then you're back waking up again, and then you're actually dreaming, and then you woke up and got ready again and you're actually still dreaming. There's that experience that might be common in early practice. There's falling out of out of lucidity. So just because you can't become lucid in a dream doesn't mean that you keep that lucidity. So I definitely have experienced this a lot with the dream reentry, where I've just woken up, I've just come back out of that dream. I can still remember it. I have time to continue to lay in bed. So I put myself imaginarily back into the dream, and then for a little bit of time, it becomes a dream and I am lucid. And then slowly but surely my lucidity falls away. And I just, after a bit, I'm dreaming again. So there's, like I said, there's different levels, and you can become lucid and come back out of it. But again, don't let that dissuade you, because with practice, you get better. So if you have become lucid even for a moment, congratulate yourself. Really, we want to tell our subconscious mind, awesome, good job. That's exactly what I want. More of that. So, give your subconscious mind a high five when you're doing that, when you're having that lucidity, even if it was short-lived. So you can also become lucid and then not remember the dream. That definitely happens every now and then. I'll have little glimpses of, oh yeah, I remember. Somebody will say something, those moments where suddenly something sparks a memory in your dream or of a dream. And then I will remember that I did become lucid, but just barely. Like I barely remember it. So it might have been a full lucid dream. It might have been at different levels, at a lower level of lucidity. I honestly don't remember. And so that can be an issue too, is remembering that you've had a lucid dream. Another thing that people do, and we'll talk about this in a moment, how to get away from this one, is people will become lucid in a dream and not know what to do. So they'll just be like, oh, I'm lucid, I'm in a dream. Okay, now what? So just, we'll talk about this in a minute. Having a plan, knowing what to do, having some idea of what you do when you become lucid is important. And you can make that part of your intention statement as you're falling asleep. So, so we'll talk about some ways to have a plan. You can come up with anything. You can say, I'm going to have a lucid dream. And when I become lucid, I'm going to go to the refrigerator and I'm going to take out my favorite cookie and I'm going to eat a cookie. And that's not a big earth-shattering thing, but it's just a way of controlling your lucidity. It's a way of locking yourself into that lucidity, of being able to start controlling dreams, because that's another level. I definitely have done more lucid dreaming, where I'm aware that I'm in the dream, but I'm not able to control anything in the dreams. Even when I remember that I want to control the dream and I try, that's a hurdle that's difficult for me. And again, don't take that on as your own. It may not be the case for you. But so doing something simple, like taking a simple action, like going to the cabin and getting a cookie and eating it or something, helps you control the dream. It helps you stay lucid. It helps you kind of keep that focus and concentration into the dream. And it gives you a way to have a plan, so that you're not getting in that lucid dream and then going, okay, now what? So start with that. Another thing that you can do is, so then there's deeper things. Obviously, that's how eating a cookie isn't like earth shattering. It's not going to improve my waking life in any way that I became lucid in a dream and ate a cookie. But so other things that you can do once you kind of just have that. So this is kind of moving on into a little bit more advanced things. Is you can talk to dream characters. You'll notice that if you get into reading Robert Waggoner's book that I'm going to tell you about towards the end of this call, he talks about the way dream characters are different from one another. There's some dream characters that are kind of what he calls mindless. They're just in the dream. They're like automatons in the dream. They're not, they don't seem to have any light behind their eyes. They are not aware. They're just dream characters and they don't exist anywhere else. And they don't know anything except for what's happening in the dream. And then there are dream characters that do know things, that seem to be more alert, awake, alive, and you can ask questions of, and they know what's going on sort of a deeper level. So they're not just playing the character or the role of the person in the dream, but they're actually more lucid themselves and more intelligent. Another thing that you can do that Robert Waggoner teaches is speaking to the force behind the dream. So what he does is he's noticed that there is some kind of force, some kind of, like I said, that dream time, that energy that we all, that potentiality that we all live in. He ignores the dream as soon as he becomes lucid. And let's say you're, walking through a school that looks like a shopping mall and you're trying to find your locker. He'll become lucid, and then he'll just start talking to the dream, like dream with a capital D. Dream, I have a question. I want to know about my life's purpose. I want to know, again, so you want to set up some intentions before you go to sleep, a plan, so that when you become lucid, you know what it is that you're looking for. Start with one thing, like guidance in your life. What area of your life would you really like to improve or get information on? You can ask about the dream too. You can ask the dream behind the dream, that dream force. Why do I keep having this dream? Why do I keep having dreams about being lost at school and it looks like a mall? So you can ask those kinds of questions, but have the questions in mind, have a plan for what those questions are. And I'd start with just one. Because again, when we come into the dream, we can lose lucidity, we can lose memory of it, we can lose control of it. We're at different levels of lucidity. So if you have really clear in mind before you go to sleep what you're going to do, I always like to start with a simple action like eating a cookie, just to control the dream, just to get a kind of a grasp on it. But then from there, what's my next step? What's my advanced thing? I don't want to just sit around and eat cookies, although that sounds amazing. I want to ask about a certain aspect of my life, about myself, about my soul's journey, my purpose. Pick something and know what that thing is before you go to sleep, so that when you hit that point and you're finally lucid and you're finally at a strong level of lucidity and you're able to stay focused and be able to concentrate on that level of lucidity, then you can start talking to that force behind the dream. And like I said, in Robert Wagner's book that I'll suggest to you, you can, he just stops the dream. He just ignores everything that's going around him and just says, okay, dream, I'd like to know about XYZ and why this is happening in my life and what I can do. And he'll just hear the voice, like booming voice from his dream. So everyone can kind of work differently with it, but that's more bringing it more into a shamanic element, into that part where it can actually start interacting with your real life. And, you can use those dreams and those lucid dreams to impact your own growth and your personal journey in your life. So hopefully that all makes sense. I know that was a lot of information really fast. But I wanted to talk really quickly about dream recall. So a few things that you can do to improve your dream, and start doing this right away, because even before you get successful at lucid dreaming, you want to be able to improve recall. Because like I said, you can have a really powerful lucid dream and still not remember it. So improving dream recall is an important element. Meditation is always a good one. A meditation, like I've said in other calls, it's good for so many things, but it helps with your focus and concentration. And the more focused and concentrated you are in the dream, the better your chances of remembering it. So meditation, always a good thing. And then a few things to help you remember is when you wake up, before you move, there's something about movement of the physical body that just starts to erase the dream really quickly. So I know having dream journals is important, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But before you reach for that dream journal or that app on your phone to start taking notes, lay really still. Just continue to lay there while the dream is still fresh in your mind, and give it a title and some bullet points. So it might be just something about where you are and the main element. So friend's house, lots of cats would be the title. And then you just bullet point, lots of cats everywhere, one cat chasing me, mean cat biting me. The point is not to be elaborating much. It's to be really quick, really concise, to the point, just a couple of bullet points. This is in your mind, the title and a couple of things, how you feel, like scary dream, cat biting me, those sorts of things. And then once you have those in mind and they're implanted there, you've moved them from your subconscious dreaming into your conscious mind, then reach for your journal and have that ready. Have the pen and the paper already there, already open to the page, right at your nightstand, or the app. Go to bed with the app already open on your phone with the notes wherever you're going to put it. Because if you have to get up and find a pen, if you have to, scroll through your phone and find the app and, oh, I wanted to write this on a different page, all of those things are going to start letting that dream just dissipate and get away from you. So definitely, do your little mental bullet points, and then put those bullet points on paper or electronically get them down. And again, start with the bullets. Don't go to, a paragraph style describing the dream, because you'll start describing the beginning, and then before you get to the second or third paragraph, you'll have forgotten the end. So bullets are a good way to just kind of grasp those essential elements, and then those will work as guideposts. You'll remember the essential element that will help you remember everything around that dream, where it was, what was happening, who were the characters, and how did you feel. Those are some things to kind of just bullet out quickly.